A debt collector called me about a loan I never took. I thought it was fraud until I traced the documents and found my own parents' signatures. It started with a phone call I almost did not answer. I was walking back from the grocery store, arms full of plastic bags cutting into my fingers, when my phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but something told me to pick up anyway. Maybe it was the tone in the air, or just the weird silence of that evening, like the calm before a storm. The voice on the other end was cold. Professional. Said they were calling from some agency I had never heard of, rattling off numbers I could barely process. Your balance due is over $12,000, they said, like I was just another box to check off. My stomach dropped. I actually stopped walking and just stood there on the sidewalk, blinking at nothing. I asked them what the hell they were talking about. They said it was a personal loan, opened in my name, taken out nearly 4 years ago. I said that was impossible. I had never taken out a loan. I barely had a credit card. They rattled off an address from back then. My old neighborhood. The same place I lived when I was still in college. I felt something twist in my gut. I told them again, there had to be some mistake. They told me mistakes like this did not just happen. They had signatures. They had documentation. The call ended with a warning. Failure to respond could result in further collection action. I walked the rest of the way home without really seeing anything around me. My arms were numb. My mind kept running in circles. I dumped the groceries on the counter and pulled out my laptop. First thing I did was check my credit report. I had not looked at it in over a year. No reason to, really. I kept my finances simple, used debit for almost everything. But there it was. A personal loan account. Opened during my junior year. Monthly payments. Missed payments. Interest piling up like a slow-moving train crash. I remember just staring at the screen, unable to breathe for a second. My name was right there. My address. My damn social security number. But the worst part? The signature on the original loan document was not mine. I would know, because I had never signed anything like that in my life. I leaned back in my chair, heart pounding, my hands shaking in a way they had not since my first panic attack years ago. Only one thought repeated over and over in my head. If it was not me, then who the hell did this? And that was when I remembered something. A memory so faint I almost missed it. A conversation I had overheard one night during winter break. My mom talking to my dad, voices low, the words muffled behind the hallway door. Something about just this once, and he'll never know. At the time, I thought they were talking about money issues. Maybe a fight. I brushed it off. But now? Now I was not so sure. And that is when the real fear set in. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that debt collector's name. I saw the loan balance sitting there like a ticking bomb. $12,000. I kept refreshing the credit report, hoping it would vanish like a glitch. But it was always there, staring back at me like it knew something I did not. The next morning, I called the loan company directly. I figured maybe they would tell me it was a clerical error, some other guy with my name. Nope. They confirmed everything. The account had been opened under my full name, with my social security number, tied to my old address. I asked for copies of the loan documents. The woman on the line said they would be mailed out. But I could tell, just from the way her voice flattened when I said the word fraud, that she had heard this story before. I hung up and opened a new tab. Credit reports. Identity theft claims. Police reports. The whole process looked like a maze, but I started filling stuff out anyway. Then something strange hit me. The old address they used, my college place, I had not even received mail there after sophomore year. I had switched to digital everything. But my parents still lived 20 minutes from campus. They had always been the just send it to our house type when it came to anything official. I started to wonder. That week, I got the loan documents in the mail. I sat there at my kitchen table like I was unwrapping a crime scene. First page, my name, my social security number, everything correct. But the signature on the dotted line? Not even close. Whoever had done it tried to mimic my handwriting. I could see it. The weird loops, the slanted letters, they looked similar but not right. Like someone trying too hard to forge something they had seen 1,000 times but never actually practiced. There was also a copy of the ID used to verify the loan. And that was when my heart actually skipped a beat. Because the ID photo? It was a scan of my old learner's permit. The same one I had lost senior year. I remembered that day so clearly my mom was furious because I had not replaced it right away. She said it was irresponsible, that someone could use it to steal from me. Funny, right? My first instinct was denial. Maybe someone had picked it up and used it. Maybe it had ended up in the wrong hands. But then I flipped to the last page. The email address listed for the loan confirmation, it was not mine, but it was damn close. It used my initials, my birth year, and it had a domain I remembered my dad using once when he set up our home internet. That was the first moment it really hit me. This was not some random stranger. This had come from inside the house, and I knew exactly who had access to all of it. The next time my phone rang, I nearly dropped it. It was my mother. I did not answer. I let the phone ring until it stopped, just sitting there in silence, the loan papers spread out in front of me like pieces of a betrayal I never signed up for. My mom rarely called. She was more of a text on holidays kind of parent. So the timing? It was not a coincidence. A few minutes later, the voicemail buzzed in. Her voice was soft. Too soft. Hey honey, just calling to check in. Haven't heard from you in a bit. Thought maybe we could grab lunch this weekend. Dad and I miss you. It sounded normal enough. But now that I knew what I knew, everything about it felt fake. Like she was calling me with a mouthful of lies. That weekend, I did go over, but not for lunch. I needed answers. And I wanted to see their faces when I asked. Their house looked exactly the same. Nothing ever changed there. Same worn welcome mat. Same crooked picture frames in the hallway. Same smell, like fabric softener and denial. They acted surprised to see me. Dad was in his chair watching some cable news rerun, barely looking up. Mom had that fake cheer in her voice, asking if I was hungry. I said no. I told them I needed to talk. Right away, I saw it. That flicker in her eyes. That second of hesitation that told me she already knew what this was about. I took the envelope out of my backpack and placed it on the table. You recognize this? I asked. Mom looked down but did not touch it. Dad just muttered something like, "What is it?" So I spelled it out. Told them a loan had been taken out in my name. Told them the bank had sent me documents. Showed them the forged signature. The email address. The photo ID that had gone missing all those years ago. And I watched. My mom's face fell not in shock, but in slow-motion guilt. Dad finally sat up. Then she did what I was not ready for. She tried to explain. Said they had hit a rough patch financially. That it was just supposed to be a temporary thing. That they figured they could pay it back before I ever found out. Said it was taken out with good intentions. Those 3 words punched a hole straight through my chest. I asked her how forging her own son's identity fit into her version of good intentions. Dad stayed quiet. That was his move, silence, like it made him less guilty. Mom started tearing up. Said they just did not want me to struggle. That the family was going through a lot back then. That I was already getting a scholarship, so I would be fine. That line stuck with me, you were already doing fine. Like that made it okay. I felt like I was losing air. Like I was sinking into something I could not climb out of. And then Mom looked me dead in the eye and said, "You would have done the same for us." I stood up so fast the chair screeched. Because the truth was, I would not have. I walked out. No yelling. No cursing. Just silence and the sound of my own footsteps down the hallway. The same hallway I had walked 1,000 times growing up. This time felt different. Heavy. Like every picture on the wall was watching me leave. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, staring at the steering wheel, trying to calm down. But nothing worked. That night, my phone lit up again. First a message from my mom. Then another from my dad, which was rare enough to make my chest tighten. They were not apologies. Not really. Her message said they understood I was upset, but that I needed to see the bigger picture. That family goes through hard times and helps each other through them. She even said I should be proud to have helped in a tough moment, even if I did not know it at the time. His message? One line. We raised you better than this. Like I was the one breaking something by being angry. It made my skin crawl. I started digging deeper, pulled up every bit of financial data I could. Old tax returns. Bank statements from the year the loan was taken. There it was, a transfer from the loan provider to my father's checking account, only a few days after the loan was issued. They had not even tried to cover their tracks. A loan in my name. Cashed into his account. Payments ignored for years. I started wondering what else they might have done under my name. I ran full credit checks. Canceled old cards. Froze every account I could. My credit was not destroyed, but it was bruised. And it made me realize how close I had come to losing everything before even getting started. And the worst part? They were still acting like I was being unfair. Like I was blowing things out of proportion. At one point, my aunt even called. Said she had heard from my mom that I was causing drama over some money situation. Told me that I should think twice before doing anything that might embarrass the family. That word, embarrass, hit harder than anything else. They had stolen my name, my trust, my future, and they were worried about embarrassment? I hung up. Then I blocked her number. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours, thinking about what I had to do next. And I knew something had to change. I sat down at my desk the next morning and opened a blank document. No distractions. No music. Just me in the slow, deliberate rhythm of typing out a timeline. Every date. Every piece of proof. Every conversation I could remember. Because I needed to know for myself that I was not crazy. That I was not overreacting. That what they did was not just a little help or a harmless mistake. It was identity theft. It was fraud. And it was done by the two people who used to tuck me in at night. I sent an email to a local attorney I found online, someone who specialized in financial abuse. Wrote out a short, careful message. Told him I thought my parents had opened a loan in my name without permission. Told him I had the documents. Asked if he had time to talk. He replied within the hour. Said yes, he had seen cases like this before. Asked me to bring everything I had. I made an appointment for later that week. Then I sat in that silence again. That weird, empty kind that creeps in after a big decision. I kept thinking about Christmas mornings. Family road trips. My dad showing me how to change a tire. My mom packing my lunches. It hurt. It really hurt. Because what do you do when the same people who raised you turn around and steal from you? That week, I visited the lawyer's office. Gave him the whole story, front to back. Showed him the loan documents, the forged signature, the money trail. He nodded slowly, flipping through the papers, and said, "This is clear-cut. If you want to press charges, you can." My throat tightened. He said there were other options too: demand repayment, force them into a formal agreement, even report it to the credit bureaus as identity theft, and wipe it off my record entirely. Then he paused. "But if you go this route," he said, "there is no going back. You know that, right?" I nodded. And I think that is when the real choice started forming in my head. Because this was no longer just about money. It was about boundaries. About trust. And maybe, just maybe, it was about finally standing up for myself after years of pretending everything was fine. I left his office with a folder full of forms, but I had not signed anything yet. Not yet. I needed one more thing first. I needed to look my parents in the eye one last time and tell them exactly what they had done and what I was about to do next. I showed up at their house unannounced. No warning. No texts. Just parked the car out front and walked up to the door like it was any normal Sunday visit. But this time, I was not here to catch up. I was here to end something. My dad opened the door. He looked surprised but not nervous. That bothered me. Inside, everything looked the same. The living room. The old photos. The couch I used to fall asleep on during movie nights. My mom was in the kitchen, stirring something on the stove like we were about to have a family dinner. I asked them both to sit down. My palms were sweating, but my voice stayed steady. I had the folder from the lawyer's office in my hand, but I did not open it yet. I started with a question. "Do you both understand what you actually did?" My dad leaned back like he was preparing for a lecture. My mom folded her hands in her lap. "I mean it," I said. "Do you understand that you committed fraud?" She flinched. He scoffed. Said something about making a big deal out of nothing. That is when I opened the folder and laid the papers out on the table. The credit reports. The bank records. The signature comparison. The confirmation emails. All of it. They tried to talk over it. My mom kept saying things like, "We were desperate, and it was a hard year." My dad jumped in, saying that "you have always had more than you realize, and we thought you would understand eventually." I cut them off. "No, you thought I would never find out." That quieted them for a second. I told them about the lawyer. Told them I had options. Told them I could report the fraud and have the loan removed from my record, and that they could be held legally accountable. The room went still. Then Mom started crying. But not the kind of crying that comes from guilt. It was the kind that comes from losing control. "You are going to destroy this family over money," she said. My dad looked at me like I had betrayed them. That was when it really hit me. They were never going to say sorry. Not really. They had justified it to themselves so deeply that my pain did not even register. They still believed they were the victims, that I was ungrateful, that I owed them silence. I stood up and grabbed the folder. "I am not asking for permission," I said. And for the first time in my life, I meant it. The next morning, I filed the paperwork. Identity theft report. Affidavit. Credit dispute. The whole thing felt surreal, like I was reporting a stranger. But it was my own parents I was naming. Their full names, their address, their relationship to me. I even had to check a box that said suspect known. That part almost broke me. I remember just sitting in the parking lot afterward, keys still in the ignition, trying not to shake. I had always imagined cutting someone off as this dramatic, angry thing. But in reality, it felt quiet, hollow, like shutting a door you never thought you would have to lock. Within days, the calls started. At first, it was my mom, leaving long voicemails, her voice cracking, saying they were scared, that this was getting out of hand. Then my dad, sounding angrier each time, warning me about airing family business. I blocked both numbers. Then my uncle called, said he heard from my dad, said it was all just a misunderstanding and that I was blowing things out of proportion. I told him I had the documents, that it was not a misunderstanding, it was theft. He got quiet. My parents started calling my job. Not directly, but I heard from a coworker that someone claiming to be a family member had asked for me at reception. Said it was urgent. That is when I changed my number completely. New phone, new plan, total reset. I got another call later that week from the lawyer. He said the credit agency had accepted my fraud report. The loan would be removed from my record within 30 days. The damage was already done, but at least now it would stop bleeding. He asked if I wanted to press charges. And that was the moment. That was the line. I asked him for the weekend to think about it. Because deep down, part of me still wanted to protect them. Part of me was still that kid who just wanted his parents to say they were proud of him. But I was not that kid anymore. And the people they used to be, they were long gone. I spent that weekend doing nothing. No calls. No emails. No news. Just me, my apartment, and the weight of everything I was carrying. I made coffee. Sat on the couch. Walked around the block like 10 times just trying to clear my head. It felt like my life had split into two timelines. One where I kept pretending it was all okay, and one where I finally admitted that it was not. I kept thinking about something my mom used to say when I was a kid. Whenever I got hurt or disappointed, she would say, "Just let it go. That is what strong people do." And I realized she never said sorry back then either. That phrase had always been about silencing me, not healing me. By Sunday night, I knew what I had to do. I called the lawyer, told him I wanted to go through with it. No settlement, no quiet deal. I wanted them to face what they had done. He said okay, that it would take time, that it might get ugly, but that I had every right. Later that week, a formal letter went out to my parents. Legal notice, potential charges, demand for repayment and full disclosure. That was the final match in the gasoline. My phone blew up again. My old email, the one I barely used anymore, flooded with messages. Subject lines like, "Please reconsider," and "You do not have to do this." One from my mom said, "You have always been so cold. Why are you doing this to us?" And that was when it finally clicked. They were never going to own this. To them, I was not the victim, I was the problem. I closed the laptop. Then I blocked the last of the email addresses. No explanation. No apology. No closure. Just silence. And for once, I was okay with that. A few weeks later, I got a call from the bank's fraud division. The investigator confirmed what I already knew but still needed to hear out loud. The identity match was airtight. The application had been submitted from an IP address linked to my parents' home Wi-Fi. The attached ID? Scanned on a printer I remembered setting up in their office years ago. She said the report had been finalized, that the lender was pursuing charges, and if I wanted, I could testify. I said yes. After the call, I sat alone in my apartment for a long time. No music, no distractions, just the sound of the fridge humming and the weight of knowing I had pulled the pin on something that would never be undone. A few days later, I heard from a cousin I had not spoken to in years. He said he had seen my mom at church, crying in the parking lot. Said people were starting to talk. Said my dad looked deflated. I did not respond. Because here is the thing no one tells you about betrayal. When it comes from the people who made you, it does not just hurt. It hollows you out. It makes you question every good memory, every childhood photo, every birthday, every laugh, every "I love you." You wonder how much of it was real, or if it was all just grooming, training you to trust people who were never worthy of it. One night, I opened an old photo album from when I was a kid, just to remind myself of what life used to look like. There was a picture of me in a Batman costume, maybe 5 years old, grinning with both my parents crouched beside me. I stared at it for a long time, and then I closed the book. Because that boy, he deserved better. And so did I. It has been almost a year. I have not spoken to them since the day I walked out of their house with that folder in my hand. Not on holidays. Not after the court hearing. Not when the lender settled the debt and wiped it from my record on the condition that my parents repay it directly or face prosecution. They paid it. Eventually. But they never apologized. Not once. The last time I saw them was in the courthouse lobby. My mom tried to look at me like maybe her eyes alone could explain everything she could never say. My dad kept his hands in his coat pockets and stared at the floor. Neither one said a word. That was the moment I stopped hoping for anything from them. And maybe that is the part that hurts the most, not the loan, not the betrayal, not even the silence. It is the way they made it so easy to walk away. Like the idea of taking responsibility was more unbearable to them than losing their son. I do not tell many people this story. Not because I am ashamed, but because the second you mention family, everyone wants a tidy ending. They say things like, but they are still your parents, or you only get one family. But here is what I learned. You do not owe anyone access to your life just because you share DNA. Love without trust is not love. It is control. It is manipulation wrapped in nostalgia. It is a cage that looks like a living room. I have rebuilt, slowly. My credit. My peace. My boundaries. I still flinch when an unknown number calls. Still hesitate when I see old photos. Still feel a little empty on holidays. But I also feel free. Because walking away was not giving up. It was standing up. I do not know if I will ever speak to them again. And honestly, I am okay with that. Because sometimes healing does not come with a reunion. Sometimes it comes with a locked door, a clean slate, and the quiet strength of knowing you finally chose yourself. And that is what trust means now. It means never letting anyone, even your own family, treat your life like it is theirs to borrow. Not ever again.